it's deeply distressing to me that there's someone with a voice that's better than mine on this. I've been able to milk this as my personality for this whole podcast.
So there's one thing on everybody's mind, and I'll pass
Spider-Man!
I'll pass it to Ani to introduce us. Lead us into it, bro.
So, being a Spider-Man fan since I was about 3 years old,
All of us.
I got to watch all three of them in theaters, which is a flex, I would
The
say.
Raimi trilogy.
Wow.
Raimi trilogy, yes.
Wes, I gotta get your insights on number 2, baby. You revisited number 2 this week, right?
It's a top 3 superhero
It's
film.
a fucking good movie,
It's a top
right?
3 superhero film.
Great
It's
movie.
not as good as Spider-Verse. I'm very
Well,
sorry to say.
listen. Even being a Toby detractor, you can acknowledge that it's slams.
It single-handedly beats every single MCU movie, which is unfortunate.
It's amazing.
No, it's a top 3 superhero movie. I think objectively, I think it's a top 3
fucking
superhero
incredible.
movie. It's
It
great.
is.
As much as I'm a Toby fan, I do love Andrew's
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I do
version.
too.
Because I grew up with comic books and I like the cool Spider-Man kind of like look, right?
Yeah.
I did like Toby's growth where he starts with high school and it ends with like an adulthood kind of like a thing. But
So the most that we've seen a Spider-Man grow, because like Tom is still in high school,
Yeah.
and he's still kind of
Boyish.
he's like learning,
Yeah.
he's in that learning curve. I think maybe towards the new one we might see him kind of
Become Spider-Man.
Spider-Man, yeah. Which is
We've been
something
saying that for
exciting.
years, though.
I know.
This is the movie where he becomes Spider-Man.
they
I
actually-
actually have a
that's-
theory about this, but we'll get to it when we get to it.
My issue with it, even though what you're saying is very true, is like I feel like the reason why he hasn't become Spider-Man yet is because they keep pausing his growth by having these adults come in and save his life.
Yeah.
The whole point of Spider-Man is that he makes mistakes and has to learn and has to pay consequences.
Exactly.
And
I
if you
totally blame Feige. It's all
I
his
think it's a
fault.
Feige thing. I think it was a noble idea at first, which is to integrate Spider-Man into the universe.
Yeah.
But the whole joke is that bigger superheroes are like a man on a goblin glider. Like you're fine.
Yeah.
You're good.
Yeah.
The Marvel universe as a comic book thing is a universe, so Spider-Man will pop into Daredevil.
Yes.
Like there's
the
Chip Zdarsky run on Daredevil, which is great. Has a mini arc where Spider-Man and Daredevil are fighting, and then like 6 issues later they're fine. But it's not like Spider-Man is Daredevil's like co-lead. It's just that he pops in, and the issue is that
they have the same beat. You know what I mean?
they would run into each other.
Millions of dollars
Yeah.
don't have to go into comic book crossovers. You can do whatever you want.
exactly.
with a comic book, right?
My issue is that Spider-Man is such a special character, especially like high school Spider-Man, is because writers who generally who have good runs on Spider-Man are interested in pushing that character forward. Like his progression is getting pushed forward.
Yeah.
And it feels like the MCU just wants to tell like weird little like Spider-Man goes to Europe. Spider-Man does this.
And so this is why I'll introduce my theory here, and Ani, I'm curious how you feel, and we'll pass it around. We, obviously we open this by saying like we've been waiting for Tom Holland to kind of step into the Spider-Man boots, sock shoes, the Spider-Man Yeezys that we're all familiar with.
Spider-Man
It's
And
crazy that it's 5 movies in and we're still saying
he's spinning
this
in
shit.
circles, right?
He has seniority over Benedict Cumberbatch, who they're acting like is
the mentor.
Is the mentor that's stepping in. He literally predates him by like a movie and has like double the amount of appearances.
Yeah, Civil War came before Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
I
And
always
so-
forget that.
and
There's
so-
only one
Forget
Doctor
that.
Strange. Now there's 3 Spider-Man solos.
Unbelievable.
And now my query is, right, we've heard some of the sentiment from Tom Holland about the role overall with this GQ interview he did, and just about like acting and his
Wants to
relationship
quit.
to it. Yeah, here's my thing.
Wants
I
to be
have
a
a theory.
landlord.
I would, well, good for him. I would not be surprised if this movie ends with him having to make a choice between Peter Parker or Spider-Man, and I can very easily see him choosing Peter Parker so that they can retire Tom Holland for a few years,
Yeah.
and then bring him back with not only a real world time gap but also
As a
an
grown-up?
in-universe time gap as an adult Spider-Man to do something else. Because I know
be
like.
nice.
Listen, I get it. Spider-Man is relatable to a lot of us because he feels like he's in high school, but the dude has other stories that we can't access while he's going to prom with Zendaya. So it's like,
I think he really needs a gap. It's just I'm kind of getting tired of it because there's nothing new that we're seeing. We're seeing visually something.
There
new.
has been so much Spider-Man output in the past like 5 years.
Yeah.
It's like kind of ridiculous.
And most of it has been, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but most of it has been good. Like most of it has been
Yeah.
good stuff aside from the MCU
But he's
stuff.
Sony's cash cow.
I feel like a lot of the excitement around this movie has to do with the fact that, hey, Toby's coming back, Andrew's coming back,
Yeah.
When I see him, you guys, dude.
I know.
You're gonna start.
I'm seeing with you.
Hell
Listen,
yes.
You're
I'm
gonna start crying.
When
You're gonna
I
start
see
crying.
Toby.
I'm gonna sob.
I'm gonna scream when I see Andrew, and I'm gonna throw up when I see Tom. So I'll be throwing up for most of the movie, but I will cry when I see Toby.
Exactly.
Are you,
Dude, when that Elfman score hits,
are you guys? My favorite thing about Spider-Man is that no matter what movie they do, they're like, you know, it would be a really new idea to take his girlfriend and throw her off
She's
of
in trouble.
They drop her off of a watchtower, a bridge,
Exactly.
and
A building
Spider-Man.
under
Sounds like a good
construction.
idea.
And Spider-Man has to dive in.
That
and
idea is so
Weber.
good that I could see that happening in like 6 or 7 movies.
Yeah.
One of the things that seems confusing, and maybe you guys can help me out with this in terms of this movie's plot, such as it is, they seem to be
It's dumb. It's a dumb.
Right. They seem to be suggesting that the multiverse is now not only reaching through space, but also through time, right? So it's actually pulling people who are dead into the current mainline universe.
It's
For the
the
sake
plot-
of plot convenience.
It's the plot of Spider-Man Friend or Foe, Justin.
Yeah.
Yes. Now you did mention this.
Remember Spider-Man?
I didn't
Friend or
play
Foe?
that
I
game,
did.
but I
I did.
remember wanting to.
The post-mortem on the Raimi movies was this game, this PS, I think it was a PSP game.
Goblin was on the cover.
Yes, it was called Spider-Man Friend or Foe, and it was I think the way they explained it was a pocket universe that was similar to the Raimi universe, where all of the
Where they were
villains were alive and willing to work with Peter Parker.
With him, yes. And which it looks like Octavius will be, although first somehow Tom Holland has to capture him, which good luck convincing me that
Confuses me.
twink can
This is,
get
the
that
most,
guy.
this is the most fan film-ish that the MCU has ever filmed.
100%.
Well, we got
so
all the
too.
Raimi characters that people loved, and we pulled them from right before they died,
Yeah.
which is very convenient when they hate Peter Parker the most.
Yeah.
And they're at their most. They're at
Except
their
for
angriest.
Octavius, who's
cool Peter
was
at the
like-
end.
Seems to be
Who says?
good in
Who
this.
says?
Okay,
Listen,
so the
he's like
rift
Peter
opened up.
Peter
Opened
Parker,
up, and
brilliant
he-
but lazy.
He pulled him out
From the
pulled
train.
him out seconds before he
It's
was like,
'cause-
"Oh, Peter actually likes."
He's like,
me."
yeah.
So when he was like, "Ah!" That's when the shit opened,
Yeah.
and they
And that moment in Spider-Man 2 where he like looks at Peter and he's like, "Oh."
That's the best performance.
He's
ever.
like, that's the
Brilliant,
best
but
villain
crazy.
performance.
I
It's really
really
good.
liked it, yeah.
And
But
they go ahead.
I think secretly this movie is going to be partially adapting Death of Ultimate Spider-Man, which has been my theory the whole time because we have the
And
Sinister
that's why
Six.
Miles is in it.
Apparently, there's a black kid apparently that's been spotted on set in a mocap suit.
Yeah.
But I think it will be at least a kind of adaptation of that storyline, especially because in that storyline, Doc Ock defects and Green Goblin's like "fuck you" and he kills him.
Yeah.
So
Now listen, a Green Goblin Doc Ock fight would be pretty cool.
With
but
the foe?
but I think and it's great to hear his voice, Peter.
Everything you want.
I started this company.
I built this company. You know how much I've sacrificed. By 1 second. My favorite is when he's talking to Peter that whole movie, and Peter's like, "Damn, who's the Goblin?" And then his helmet gets knocked off, and he's like, "Oh my God, it's that guy with the Goblin face."